Chris Desai, transforming our world with UOCEAN 2050 and UEARTH 2050, a sailor's connection to nature. Step into the world of Chris Desai, a third-generation sailor turned global change maker. From his roots in fashion and music to his deep-seated love for nature, Chris's journey is a testament to the power of transformation. Experience the pivotal moment at sea that sparked his profound connection to every living being on Earth and led him to create the luxury brand Vayyu and Vayyu Foundation. And his ambitious goal projects, UOCEAN 2050 and UEARTH 2050. Join us as Chris shares his vision for a more sustainable future and discover how he's using his passion for a conservation to make a lasting impact on our planet. Welcome to the Wellness Driven Life Show, where you're about to go on a wellness driven ride. Let me share a little bit more about the guests that we have here today. Chris Desai, a respected entrepreneur and philanthropist from Leicestershire, UK, is known for his luxury fashion brand Vayyu and his charity, the Vayyu Foundation. Born to a Ugandan political refugee father and an English/Scottish mother, Desai has significantly impacted the UK and Commonwealth through his global projects, UOCEAN 2050 and UEARTH 2050. I am so pleased to help welcome to the stage Mr. Chris Desai. Hi, Chris.
Hi, thank you for the overwhelming introduction.
And I don't know if I actually said any of that correctly, but I get to give you up to the stage and allow you to present it so much better than I can.
I think that was pretty good, to be honest. I don't think I could have done better than that. So that was phenomenal. I'm going to take notes from that next time.
Well, thank you. This is such an honor and a privilege to have you here on the Wellness Driven Life Show. Thank you so much for being here, because the things that you're doing in the world is just exceptional. It's very inspiring to me as the host. And so I am so pleased to be able to share this with our audience today. Let's get started by sharing a little bit more about you.
Sure. I mean, to be honest, I'm pretty much an open book. My journey into conservation, my journey into holistic kind of well-being, came very organically, but I think like most of us, we fight it along the way. So, being born and raised in the UK, my dad coming from abroad when he was just a young child as a refugee, we were always given that kind of mentality of like, fight for everything you want. If you want it, you go and get it. The opportunity's there. Don't let a no, discourage you from achieving anything. So for me, I got raised or dragged up, with my two brothers, and very much, we didn't have much growing up. It was it was a very humble background, and I just wanted more. I generally wanted more in life. I think we were always kind of instilled, with the work ethic, especially the work ethic of like immigrant families, where it's like you do any job, you do it better than everyone else, and you do it cheaper than anyone else, right? I mean, it's like, there's that trauma, that generational trauma, I believe, that's brought along with having to flee a country, because they've always got that mentality that this might happen again, and it's one of those things that I never truly understood. I think because I was born here, for me, United Kingdom's my home. So I didn't ever see it as, that I'm in a foreign land. But I think for my parents, especially, they kind of was like blend in, fit in, don't stand out. That was the thing. And, you know, that was never going to happen from a young age. I was the kid on top of the table dancing, you know, I was the one singing at the top of my voice. Like, you know, I was just out there. Like, I couldn't even say this was taught, you know, it's just something inherent in me. I like to express myself. So yeah, growing up was a challenge, you know. It was that I was one person at home and one person with my friends, right? You know, um, and you know, I think the morals that it instilled in me, the work ethic, I stick to this day. You know, I will work harder than everyone else. I will get further than everyone else. You know, not by kind of a privileged situation, but by my own merit. And I think, you know, as you do that, you become very, very aware of what you've got and what you lack and how to overcome those problems. So for me, it's been a constant journey. Like, I'm a lifelong learner. I mean, I've just learned how to introduce myself, you know, from your wonderful introduction. Like, you know, I really am learning every day. I learn from people because, you know, other people have, you know, knowledge of the world that I don't currently have, and I have knowledge that other people don't have. So I've always been very much that, you know, if I meet someone, I'm not there to kind of judge them. I'm not there to, you know, who knows what journey they're on, you know, but it's very much like, if I can take some positive things, even from some very negative people, you know, I'm still going to take something from them in that respect, you know, just to add to my character, whether it's adding to my resilience, whether it's having empathy, you know, whether it's having these traits that, you know, I don't think we were all born with. I think we learn some traits, you know, some come naturally. And yeah, so growing up, my mom was like a sailor. She sailed from a child. Her dad taught her to sail. They used to go sailing every, you know, weekend. And then I got put on the water at a young age. But like I said, we didn't have any money. So it was very much like she used to save up and get me on the water anytime she could. And what's quite funny is the first thing she ever did is put me on a surfboard. And I ended up breaking, well, sorry, it's like a, you know, windsurfing board. And they said, whatever you do, do not pull the boom. Do not pull that back, because you will fly forward. And, you know, telling me at 7 years old not to touch something was not a great idea. And I pulled the boom and it went super fast. And I was like, this is amazing. Didn't know how to stop, right? So I just let go, jumped in, and it broke. And, you know, so anyway, they put me in a boat and they said, look, you'll be better in a boat because you can't break it as easy. And that was, you know, my love for water just came naturally in the natural environment. So the journey was very much organic, going into the water, just feeling at peace when I was in it. But then later in life, as we'll kind of get to, I really lost that connection, you know, in the front of my mind, that conscious part of me. But in the subconscious, I was always, you know, kind of in love with the ocean, rivers, nature, but life, society, you know, and my own doing. I think it's a time to actually admit, you know, when it's our fault. You know, I got taken away with career and that drive force, you know, to kind of to do better. That, you know, eventually I got to the point, which I'll go into later, that yeah, I just had to have that moment of clarity.
Well, you're right. We do get very, very far off from that childhood state of wonder and dreaming. In fact, I was just telling my husband, I think the other night or yesterday, when we start to contemplate what we dreamt about when we were children, and what we wanted to be when we grew up, that childlike state of wonder, that curiosity, that creativity, and how vastly different it is where we are now for most of us, I would say, likely. And if some of us can even bring ourselves back to the thoughts of, what was it that I wanted to be when I grew up? Because a lot of us don't even think about that, or we have forgotten. And it's very interesting as I pondered on that and reflected. I'm like, you know, there was probably a top 4 things that I wanted to be when I grew up when I was a kid. And 2 of them were so unrealistic that
What were
like,
they? I want to know now.
I wanted to be a mermaid. So when you talk
Beautiful.
about the water and being really connected to the ocean, that certainly stemmed and resonated with me as a young child. And then the other unrealistic one was I wanted to be a superhero because Shira was my superpower. So if you reflect and think about what were your heroes, what kind of play did you engage in as a child, that will certainly bring you back to the memories of what you wanted to be and experience and show up as. And then a singer, and which I don't engage in, although I do sing in the shower. I think most of us do it on the roadways, right? That's fun. And what was the other one? An artist, which I get to do. And so I think that too, some of those things, they do play out a little bit if we allow them to do so. But it's fun to reflect on that. And you, Chris, you really were connected with the ocean. And like you said, you veered away. And I want to go back a little bit too, because you mentioned this generational trauma that we experience. And when we think about our parents and how they show up in the world and how different it is, we learn so much. Like you learn from your parents this work ethic that you never lost. And it has shown so beautifully in your life and how you really get things done. And when you aspire to do something, you do it. And then there's the other pieces of that that aren't so great yet. So there's these contrasting things that we kind of get to pick apart through what we've learned from our ancestors and from our parents.
No, 100%. I mean, just to skip back, I think we do fulfill our dreams without realizing sometimes, right? And
Yeah.
follow me for a sec on this. That we have these dreams as a child. For instance, mine was I wanted to be an RAF pilot. I wanted to go to fly jets. That was always my thing. I loved the thought of flying, all them kind of things. But say for instance, like yourself, you said you wanted to be a superhero. The need for that is to protect other people.
Yeah.
And yet in your life, just from briefly knowing what I know about yourself, you've actually gone into that to protect other people. So therefore you manifested that original thought. But I think that's the most beautiful thing, that what we think life will give us isn't always that. You ask God for patience, he'll give you a situation, right? That's the kind of thing. He's not going to go, here's the patience.
Yeah.
No, we give you a situation to learn it. You wanted to be a superhero. I'm sure at some points you've helped save people's lives. So therefore you are a superhero. You wanted to be a singer. People determine, being a record multi-platinum artist, right, as being successful. No, it's not. That's one form of success. Being a singer is to be able to enjoy your own voice.
Well, and I utilize my voice here on this platform. So it's a form of expression, to an audience.
100%. And I think with my life, being in love with the water, and then obviously, being in love with flying, all these things that I've kind of, I thought I went away from it. I did, like, to an extent on the outside, the physical. But what it was is I was manifesting those dreams in a format that I didn't realize. So for instance, I love creativity. I love music. I love all these kind of things, right? I always liked to dress well when I was younger. And it's very much that, through that, I went into a career of fashion. And fashion allowed me to express myself. It allowed me to travel in airplanes, right, around the world to these nice locations, and it was very much that I did have the things that were in my heart, but they were just in the wrong way, and it had the wrong motivation behind it. So I think it comes to a point in your life where if it's kind of like when you put out a blueprint, or, if you're wanting to recruit someone, right, for a business, you need to really hone down on the details of what you want, not who wants a job has to be around talk shows, right? No, this is a wellness driven, life show, etc. So I think that's what happened, that when I had that moment of, there's been 3 pinnacle moments of awakening. I think people see, read stories of like Buddha, and they're like, oh, it just happened. Like, it doesn't in most people's lives. It's like anything. You step up, you step up, you step up. And for me, it was that the first time that it hit me, people think that actually to step up, it's an elevation and it'll be nice. But I think it actually comes with stepping off that pedestal that you put yourself on to start with. And that's what happened to me, that, 10 years or so in a business. And, I was an art director, I was at the top of the company, very, very successful in that respect on other people's view of me. Flying everywhere, 45-person team, multi-million pound kind of business, all these kind of things. And it was so far from the truth, because it's like, well, it was a multi-million pound business, but yet I wasn't receiving any of that. I was just receiving a good wage. It was, I was an art director, but yet, it was an 18-hour day. It was like, oh, he knows so many people, but had no friends, right? And they're the kind of things that outward view of success, and it becomes sickening. It becomes like so toxic that people kind of then do it even more to try and find fulfillment in it. And as I said about the pedestal, that first level of enlightenment for me was waking up at 5 o'clock in the morning. I just came off a flight at 2 o'clock in the morning. I'd gone Uber to the flat, to the house. No one was in there because I lived on my own. I've literally got in, there was no food in the fridge because I wasn't even living there. Basically, I was always on the move, and it was cold, and I just literally slept for like 2.5, 3 hours. And I woke up because my alarm went off and I had to be back in the office at 6. And I just looked in the mirror, and it was one of those things where so much of our lives, we can look at our reflection and we look at how we're dressed and if we're smiling and, if our hair's done, but we don't actually look at ourselves, and we avoid eye contact with ourselves. That's a lot of psychologists will explain this, that we never truly look into our own eyes and we never speak to ourselves because we believe we are ourselves, right? We're just living. They don't see a separation. And for me, that elevation was a big tumble off the pedestal, because I looked in the mirror and I just couldn't look at myself in the eye. And then when I finally brought myself to it, I just literally said the words, and I remember it to this day. And I just said, my language, but I just said, you're so full of rubbish. It's unbelievable. Like, you actually start to believe your own lies. You actually start to believe that this is cool, this is success. And as I got dressed, and I mean, I was a bit of an emotional wreck, and I don't do emotions that often, and I'm putting, my watch on, I'm putting my suit on, and I just looked at myself and I just went, if this is what life has to offer, I don't know. I don't want it. I don't appreciate it. I don't, it seemed exciting to start with, but there was just such a big lacking hole in me, and so tumbling off that pedestal to look yourself in the eye and say, do you know what, you're full of rubbish, you're not true to yourself, you can't even look at yourself, but yet everyone thinks you're this big success, everyone smiles at you in the office and stabs you behind your back, because you're their boss. Like, it was just one of those. So the elevation started with the de-elevation, right? And that was the first moment that the journey started for me. Before Vayyu, before the Vayyu Foundation, before UOCEAN, this is 3 years before all of that, it started.
Yeah, it's that moment it's like that aha moment, I understand sort of thing. I have a new perspective of the awareness. I mean, that's really where it starts, right? That something is just drastically unaligned in life and not living in the authentic self.
100%. I think people, don't look at their feelings. They kind of experience their feelings. They're in their feelings and they say, I am this feeling. But your feelings are literally like a radar. If you don't feel good, it's your body, it's your mind, it's your soul telling you something's not right.
Yeah.
And people don't do that. They go, okay, evolutionary, they'll go, let's fix it. Let's buy something. Let's eat something. Let's go in a relationship. They try to mask the problems.
Externally fixing externally instead of going within.
like a band-aid, right? A band-aid, and put a jumper on, no one will see it. It's fine. And inside we're bleeding out. And I think for me, I was just very fortunate because I've always said this, that there's some people in life that are generally good people, right? You know, you've got friends in your phone book where, you know, they just are so good. You know, I question how they can be so good, right? And I accept it, you know, but it's very much like, I've never been, I don't think I'm particularly like a great person like them. I think I've got a good heart, and my mum's always instilled that with me. You know, I respect women, I respect my elders, I respect, you know, my family, you know, I do my duties. And so it's like I have a good, you know, I think a base moral system, but at the same time, I mean, you know, for me to raise up through, you know, and I'm talking 14 positions in my career to get to where I was a shock. Like, I wasn't out to make friends, I was out for blood. And, you know, it was one of those things that, yeah, it worked, you know, apex predator in the business, because that's what I was instilled with. That's what I thought I wanted. And, you know, the fact is, sharks don't swim in groups. Apex sharks, they swim alone.
Yeah.
You know, that's one of the things that I realized, that, well, you wanted this, you've got it. You know, life says that. People think that life says, you know, I'll only give you the good things and bad things to trial you. No, it's a universal thing. You say, I want this, life says, okay, I'll give you this. You, whether it's good, whether it's bad, you've asked for it. You're the creator, right? So you have it. Here you go. If that causes your downfall, that's your own fault. That's on you. And that's why we're given feelings as a radar to be able to say, does this feel good? Does this feel permanent? Does this feel temporary? Is this like shallow, you know? And I think from that day forward, I started to listen, like really listen, because, you know, when you're jacked up on caffeine, like coffees, you know, 6 coffees a day, all the different energy drinks, you know, like just to keep your eyes open, right? You know, going from like just meeting to meeting to meeting, flight to flight to flight, meeting to meeting to flight, not switching your phone off, not getting good sleep, your internal radar completely gets blocked. There's no natural frequencies within your body. You're not listening. You're not even touching the ground that you walk on, right? You're not honoring the very life force that allows us to exist. You know, we breathe the air like it's a commodity that we're just given, not thanking the trees or the plants that they created that for us. You know, we walk on the ground so harshly, we dig it up, we smash it, we do whatever, not respecting every footstep that it supported you on since you was a baby. You know, that realization.
You have such a beautiful perspective and such a gorgeous story. I love it because you have experienced such contrasting situations in life. You've lived, and I love how you explained it as the shark, because it's, you know, in comparing ourselves with nature and that which is given, and how we are drawn so far away from it. And you're correct. It's that I tell a lot about how we need to calm down and go within and calm that the body system down in order to even get to a creative state of being, because that is what creates disease, right? When we're living in this stressful, and the body's not designed to do that. It can and it will, but it's not going to flourish if you continue to do that, and it will create disease, and whether that's physically, mentally, emotionally, all of it combined. And so because you've had this life where you've lived to that extreme level, and now you're having an understanding of the complete opposite, and what really makes us thrive as a human being, is really cool to see and hear and experience.
No, I thank you. I just think it seems so obvious, right? Like, it would seem so obvious if we hadn't have all the lived in experiences and we just came fresh to this planet with the awareness we have, you know, like as an adult. It would be obvious, like, oh my gosh, this keeps us alive. This is this, like, you know, it's because we're drawn into these systems that have been created, you know, through economics, this capitalism, whatever it may be, and we're all suckers for it. And the fact is, without now actually being part of it, you can't live. You
Yeah.
know, so it's like we're drawn in Hinduism, we call it Maya, right? You know, in Islam, they call it dunya. And both words, Maya or dunya, they mean illusion, right? That we live in this illusion. Quantum physics is even kind of proving this, you know, with light particles, you know, with the observer effect, that what we truly see isn't really what it is. You know, our eyes only pick up such a small spectrum of everything, right? You know, the fact that we're talking like this, but we're seeing this upside down, right? But we're actually switching it in our minds before we've even realized a millisecond. So, you know, when we realize we're living in this Maya, and that if you could see yourself just that this is a computer game, a very real feeling, touchy, earthy figure, you know, VR on steroids, right? You
Yeah.
know, if you
Yeah.
realize that your character can actually do what it wants. Your character can choose different, you know, but in order to do that, you need to get control of the character. It's like a husky just running off the leads. You know, if you want it to pull that sleigh, you need to get a harness on its body, right?
Yeah.
Then the energy, the drive, the excitement that dog has to run, you can use that for a force to be reckoned with and to be good. And the fact is, no one can stop you. That's the difference. You know, the only person stopping us is ourselves. And
Yeah.
that's the irony of it. We could choose to be happy if we woke up in the morning, right? I get, obviously, you know, there's cases when it's talking about chemical imbalance and things like that. But the fact is, you know, our brain is the biggest chemical factory in the world, right? We produce thousands and thousands of things daily, seconds, you know. Some, you know, we look at an Instagram post, boom, gives you that hit, you know, of either cortisol, or it gives you, you know, a
Yeah.
dopamine boost and things like that. You know, it's, and even if you look at, you know, I read an amazing book called Atomic Habits, um, and he was talking about it, that dopamine hits you before you even do the action. So, like, when I knew I was going to speak to you today, just by looking at my phone in the diary, boom, the dopamine's up. Before now, this me speaking to you is only 10% of that spike. You know, so it's actually that it's our mind, our perception of reality that ultimately can create. So it's very much, if we wake up in the morning, we can say to ourselves, you know, and I do this with Vayyu Foundation, with UOCEAN, I'm like, today, I'm just going to do the best I can do. You know, is life easy for me? Are things just, you know, is there low hanging fruit everywhere? No, I'm not saying there is right now, but there will be. And it's about saying, today, I can actually achieve this. I'm even going to try achieve this. If I achieve it, it's a win. If I don't, well, I didn't have it before, so I've not lost anything, right? And it's about actually enjoying the journey. You know, we spend the whole our entire life looking forward to tomorrow, regretting what happened yesterday, and
Hmm.
miss the present.
Yeah,
We
that is the trick, right? That's the trickiness of being able to really understand what living in the present moment is, because our bodies are designed in such a way, and it's honing in. I love that you talked about the husky and how, you know, it's just a husky that's so excited, that's totally off the leash, and it's being able to train, because they're brilliant animals, right? And you can train them, and they are able to do exactly what you coach them to do. And it's the same idea for our minds and our bodies. You know, the body is just a robot controlled by the mind. And so when we understand that, we can start honing in and training it to do exactly what we want it to do, which therefore is living more in the present moment. And so that's incredible that you've brought all of this up too. And it's interesting to me. I was just speaking with my daughter, my beautiful 20-year-old daughter, soon to be 21.
Oh
And
wow.
of course, you know, she reflects on this, what's the meaning of life and all of the things, right? And so we're talking about how she likes to go really in the spiritual aspects of ourselves and of our beings, and how we've come into this world and this life because we get to experience it, because we get to create. And when we talk about, with all this incredible science back aspects now that we have the proof of that which is not seen. And we know that we are the creators of our realities, of this virtual reality, right? It's really, it makes it so much more inspiring to continue in with that creative aspect, the stepping into the unknown and the excitement of what is going to happen and what's possible and what's next.
100%, right? I mean, if you knew that life wasn't just happening to you, but you could actually push it around a bit, navigate around, a few obstacles. If you stop, people's mentalities that life happens to them. They're just a victim. They're a victim of it. And someone told me a long time ago, he's from the UK, he's a great life coach. And he actually does kind of business for high achievers, right? And we got talking a few years ago. His name's Dr. Rakesh Rana. And he literally said, whatever happens to you, 100% of that situation, right? 90% of it is your reaction. Only 10% is the actual situation. He's like, but you could choose to make it the 100%, or you could actually choose to just see it as the 10%. You wake up in the morning, you get that email. Really sorry, you haven't got the grant or the contract or the sponsorship. We've seen that with UOCEAN and Vayyu Foundation. I can look at it and go, do you know what? Oh my gosh, how am I going to pay my bills, right? Or I could say, do you know what? Okay, let me learn from that. So email them back. Could you tell me a little bit more why I didn't get it? Because in the future, I don't want to make that same mistake again. And sometimes they'll come back and say, do you know what? It's actually nothing. Everything was perfect. It's just we've got too many applications and you did yours too late, right? Something like that. So I could say, okay, wow, the application was great. Maybe I just need to be a bit better with my time management. And also now I can apply for some more because I know that application is great. So now it's giving me that confidence to go for 4 or 5 of them. I've taken that 10% situation where you could go, I knew I wouldn't get it, or life isn't, going my way. Or no, do you know what? Life's presented me with a feedback loop to improve. Does it feel bad? Yeah, for a second. But in that split second, turn it around. That is the 10%. My 90% is going to be positive from it, And life's hard sometimes for some people and some situations. Life, obviously, whatever's happening, we all navigate different things. And it's, I think it's a lot easier said than done. I think taking your own advice is some of the hardest, right? Especially, when you've got wonderful children, you're trying to tell them these life lessons and they go, but you did. And you're like, just, do as I say. And you realize as a parent, wow, I need to live these values. I need to, I was telling my daughter, don't get mad with people, because she's got a tendency that, you get on the wrong side of her. She's that apex, I think that's genetic. And I would say to her, look, don't react to it. Just, tell them how you feel or move away from the situation. Tell them, move away. Don't want to speak to you about it, etc. You can't go, you can't go into that situation like, I'm going to do blah, 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 blah. And then, it's one of those situations where she said to me, but when we were driving in the car, I heard you shout something out the window. And I'm like, yeah, don't tell your mum that, but yeah, so it's about, we're all human, we make mistakes, but actually, if we can live those lessons that we know deep down are true, and that we create like habitual kind of, rituals with it, that it's very normal, that any situation comes, I can learn from this. There is gold in this dirt that's being thrown on me, right? I'm going to use this pile to actually stand on so I can see above the problem. Pushing a heavy boulder up the hill. Where do you get grit from? People go, how do I get grit? How do I get grit to carry on and fight through? Push the boulder harder. If you push that boulder so hard, you'll grind bits off the bottom of the rock and it'll be the grit under your feet that you need to push it further. You're not just going to find it. You need to carry on. You need to maintain your integrity, right?
Chris, you are just so packed full of wisdom. My gosh, I could let you just talk and talk and talk, and you are so packed full of wisdom. And it amazes me because it's just fascinating how much life you have already lived and the wisdom that you really gained, and now you're applying to the whole world. So, we're going to go into our commercial, and when we get back, Chris, I would love to learn the story of when you were on the ocean and you had the connection with everything. Stay tuned. Are you ready to take control of your ride to wellness? Rev up with Driven Living. Visit www.drivenliving.com and buckle up for a journey. Get exclusive access to our Wellness Driven Life Show guest portal, where you can dive deep into the minds of our esteemed guests. Sign up for our newsletter and get insider scoops on these distinguished personalities. It's like having a backstage pass to their life-changing wisdom. But that's not all. You'll also receive a free hug. You heard me right, a free hug. An enlightening ebook from the Driven Living team. Discover the science-backed benefits of hugging yourself. It's a fill-up for your wellness tank. Because at Driven Living, we believe in fueling your journey to wellness, both physically and psychologically. So what are you waiting for? Visit www.drivenliving.com today. Welcome back. Chris Desai, everyone. You are just an amazing human being, and I love hearing your stories. And so speaking of, you shared this fascinating story with me during your intake form here on the Wellness Driven Life Show, and I would love for you to share that with the audience.
Yeah, sure. So my journey, I said, from being born, kind of in the UK, moving out of Leicester, going to London for work in that respect, driving myself, through the ranks, got to the point where I realized this material success is just not fulfilling. And I believe everyone has to get to that point. It's one of those things that I've always said, I wish everyone had some sort of success in their life to realize that it's not actually what they want, right? Unless you touch that item that you want, you can't realize it's not what you want. And you realize it was that journey that had all the value, that every day waking up, driving for it, time and time again, people have mastered their dreams at a very young age and then fallen into depression and all these other things because they realized it was never the goal, it was the journey. So I basically, after this moment that I had, I knew that I couldn't kind of go on being happy in that respect, or this fake version of happiness, and I had a lot of trips coming up, and that's when life started changing for me. That I had some situations where I saw some really just depressing things when I was abroad in these factories, and I saw what we were doing to the planet. So I had this idea. I was like, I need to be more sustainable. I need to do something. I need to I don't know, change the company maybe. I didn't know where to start. So I started researching, learning, tried to change the company internally. They never wanted to hear it. I tried to, kind of basically derail all of it. So I had no choice but to leave. So I left. And through a chance moment, which I don't believe in coincidence, I don't believe it's coincidence we're speaking. There is, for me, it's actually a divine path that I'm trying to follow. So I basically had lunch with a friend, and through that conversation, long story, but I ended up on a boat off the Isle of Wight in the UK, and I ended up staying on this boat for 6 months. Not knowing 6 months, 6 months, no laptop, no phone, nature. It wasn't a nice boat, by the way. This isn't like catamarans in the Cayman Islands, right? This was midwinter UK damp sailing yacht with like 5 other people on it. Wow. Head to toe. And do you know what? I've never been happier in my life. And I could not believe the freedom that I had. And it was the strangest thing. And to this day, I think I get emotional when I think about it. Because actually, it's very much one of these situations where if you don't know yourself, or you've not met yourself truly in such a long time, since you're a child, right? Since you're, actually you're not tainted by all of this rubbish that we kind of go through, that it was one of the first times that I started to feel connected with me. I started to wake up in the morning and go, who's Chris Desai? What does Chris Desai feel like? Like, that sounds so strange, but, to start to know yourself, to start to, I'd be talking with people on the boat, and I'd say something, and make people laugh. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like I've got humor, right? I didn't realize it was still in me. I've always had this cheekiness to me, but like still there because I've been such a work professional, laughing this, for so long. And over this 6-month period, it was actually 3.5 months into this journey. I've always meditated. And that's one of the things that since I was 14, I've meditated. It was an interesting thing for myself. I don't, this is charity and everything aside, this is personal for me. But, I was told at a young age, because I was raised obviously between like Hinduism and Christianity, that, meditation was actually like a bad thing to do. It was very much like it gave, the devil an entrance to your mind, and all of these kind of,
Wow. Interesting.
dogmas that came with, real kind
Yeah.
of church, going people. But something in me at a young age, like, and that's what I think, is there something passed on that I just started to sit with my legs crossed and close my hands and close my eyes and sit there from a young age. And I found such peace in meditation. And it's like people get it confused. They go, oh, I don't know how to meditate. No, you don't need to know how. You just sit there and close your eyes. Like, it really isn't as hard as that. Like it can be as easy as that. So, and eventually your body will get into the cycle of it, right? And you start then breathing practices and yoga and whatever it may be. So I had this kind of thing, and I was meditating on the front of the boat, and it was the life-changing moment. It was when we hit a wave, and every time we hit a wave, the spray would like, go, and the boat goes up every time. And, it's on this boat, I had this moment where it's like we kind of hit a wave, but there was no spray. There was no, like, just imagine we're talking now and then silence, complete, like, sometimes like when you're on your own, there's that like that sound, like just complete, like the silence is deafening, right? Especially when you've been around a lot of noise. And I had this moment where, it lasted, and I must say in reality, obviously a fraction of a second, but in my consciousness, it went on for a few minutes, and I just felt this jolt go through my body. And it's the weirdest feeling because it's like I could taste the sand, and this sounds so strange. It's like I could taste the sand underneath the boat, underneath the water, like in the earth. I could taste it in my mouth. And then at the same time, I could see the boat, and at the same time, I could feel what it would be like to be, the wood. I could feel the teak on the deck. I could smell the ocean. I could like all of these kind of things, and just, boom, open my eyes, the water hit me, and I'm just streaming full of tears. And to me, it's like I could never explain that moment. All of these thoughts, these I don't know what you call it, messages, words, sounds, sights, tastes, everything's in my mind. And I'm just crying, I'm sobbing on my own. And everyone's like, are you okay? And I'm out of it. I'm a person that like, I broke my shoulder and I didn't cry. I'll just like pick myself. I actually broke my shoulder, went to an event, right, for 3 hours, and then walked myself to the hospital. Like, that's who I am. And I'm crying over dolphins, bouncing off the bow wave. And I just kind of went, oh my gosh, like I've just felt connected to everything that's ever existed, like before me, after me, in this present moment, that I'm a particle of just this entire cosmos that I never realized before. And I always say these feelings, it's so hard to put them in human words. It's like when you're trying to translate from a different language, how could some words just don't translate? I think spiritual things can't translate always into words or descriptions, right? It has to be self-realized, something that happens over weeks. You can just grab in a second, but that's not how it happened, right? And so this process for me is very, very muddled in my mind still. Like, when did I come up with it? When did I think of that? When did I, that happen? So, but all I know is the next 3 days after that, every day I could not sleep. I mean, I'm just writing notes, I'm drawing things in my little pad. I was supposed to be learning how to sail properly. Yeah. I actually did do my yacht master, so I became a captain, which is good.
That's cool.
Yeah, the first qualification I really got. It's, one for the shirt. And yeah, from that moment, I just wrote this word down, and this word is literally Vayyu. And I kept trying to, I'm like, why you? I'm like, you, Vayyu, Vayyu. Like, I didn't know what I was trying to decipher, because it's like a television signal with the aerial bent, right? I'm trying to get around to get a clear connection. And through years of non-meditational practices, like when I was 14, I did it all the time. By the time I was 21, I probably stopped it completely, and then started it for 6 months and stopped it, did it for a week, stopped it, started it. It's hard to meditate when you're living the complete opposite of what that promotes within you. So it's very much that I came off the boat, I knew what I needed to do. It took about a month and a half to figure the last part out. And I went back into London. I knew I needed to start a brand, an ethical, sustainable, organic brand, because I only know fashion and music. That's all I know. I'm not the most academic person in the world. I'm self-taught. Most of my education happened when I was on the street. Like, that's real life situations. Happened when I was selling stuff, happened when a designer's telling me something, happens when I'm in a factory, So it's very lived experience. And that was it. I started Vayyu, did the whole entrepreneur thing, went through absolute hell. They're probably the worst 2 years of my life, as in I was like on the bread line. I invested all my money into it, had, like baked beans in the cupboard. Like, it was difficult. And this isn't like,
I'm laughing because I get it.
You get a lot of rich people go, yeah, it was so hard, I couldn't fill my Bentley up. I mean, what to do? And it wasn't like that. I'm talking, I'm like walking by people thinking, like, looking, at their bag of shopping, thinking like, geez, I wish I had that right now, and it brings you down to a point, right? When you've got nothing, you get that carnal instinct, and it really does show you who you are. And at that point is when I just needed to submit, I think, to myself, to my inner energy, my soul, and say, okay, how can I move forward without going down this carnal route, without going down this apex predator shark kind of ethos, right? And let life happen, life just flow through me, instead of trying to constantly claw my way up the river. And that's me with an ice pick, on the riverbed, just one hand at a time, and going, why is it so difficult? But I love the difficulty. I'm going to keep doing it. And this was that situation where it's saying, just lay back on top of the water and let the flow of life take you where. Don't be wrong, keep your eyes up. There might be a waterfall on that side, right? Then 90% situations, but I kept my wits about me. And do you know what? Cut a long story short, 2.5 years later, we're in 633 shops in the UK, America, New York, Florida, never Texas, but I'm sure we'll come out there. And Vayyu scaled.
That's so great. And I was saying it incorrectly to begin with. I was saying Vayyu, it's Vayyu.
Yeah,
and
Vayyu.
Which I like better. And so, I love the point of discussion that has come up with this, Chris, because you're talking about, as an entrepreneur, that it's not easy for everyone. Not everyone has the money and the backing and the teams and all of the stuff that really is essential to help you, do very, very well. Otherwise, it is a long and difficult journey. But I tell you what, when you have something that is just burning, that desire, that knowing, the internal knowing that whatever it is that you've got, it's something that the world needs to know and have access to. And you're talking about how you struggled with that. And, do I go back to just knowing what I know, doing it well and succeeding that way? Or do I continue on this course and just have faith in the fact that eventually something will pan out? And it certainly has. That's an incredible story.
It was touch and go. In my head, it was touch and go. In life, I believe it was touch and go. But I think in the bigger scale of things, all of this needed to happen. I think to humble me, humble that ego, humble that pride, and everyone that knows me, I don't pretend not to be who I am. That apex in me, that lion, is still there. It's always going to be there. It's who I am. I'm built like differently. I'm built in that way. And but now it's about actually use that determination, just like the Huskies, use that drive, but do it for a force for good, not for destructive behavior, not for betterment of myself, but betterment of the planet, of my volunteers. Imagine, I can be that lion that protects my entire tribe instead of that lion that hunts my tribe. That's the difference. Two same animal, same thing, two different ends of the story.
Yeah.
And that's what I've done. I've ended up, I will stick up for my team. I will stick up for my community. I will stick up for the planet. And when I've stood there, I've spoke at the UN, the water conference, this event in the building. And, I spoke at COP28 just a few months ago. And I'm not going to hide back from the truth. And I said it at the water conference, that this trickle down economics, this top down solutions to the indigenous communities does not work. Like in that respect, it needs to be indigenous led. How can you come to someone's country and tell them what they need to do when they've been doing that for thousands of years anyway? It's like, listen to people, listen to ideas, listen to people that have got lived in experience. What are their barriers to entry? So it's about my job not to, own this, but to facilitate this movement, to facilitate this energy going through me, not controlling it, but actually just letting it flow in and, as it comes out, give it a direction of where it can go, and do I make mistakes? Loads. Do I make mistakes daily? Of course I do. But do I have successes? Of course I do. And it's about owning up to, what? Yeah, I'm loud. People always say, you're disruptive, like you there's no pink elephant in the room with you. Of course there's not. That's how I am. If you don't like me, I say join the line of people that goes around the block. Trust me, you'll get your turn in about 5 years' time. But there's a lot of people that love me as well because I believe I've got a good heart and I believe I've got the right intention. But I think previously in the fashion role, before I started Vayyu, that heart got masked, got masked by insecurity, inferiority, all of them kind of things, and growing up in the environment I grew up in, you had to be tough. You had to be rough. And I'm talking before work. I'm talking school. I'm talking, try being the only brown kid, in the school I went to. Let's be, raw here. I got on the bus the first day and the first thing, there were 6 guys on the back seat throwing racist remarks at me.
Yeah.
So what did I do? I didn't sit there and take it. Trust me, I won't say what I did on the video, but I'm gonna make my mark. I'm not going to ever be a victim of anything, right? And especially even on this journey, I'm not going to be a victim of my own mind and my own self, because ultimately, then you've lost in life. If you're a victim to yourself, you can't even control your thoughts. You can't control your actions. You can't control your emotions. Then you've lost.
Yeah. Wow. Well, that said, Chris, let's share with the audience the things that you have created because it's exceptional. So I'm going to share my screen
Okay.
and we're going to go ahead and share some of the things, the projects that you have here.
Okay. So,
Great.
shall I just go for it?
Yep.
Okay. So the Vayyu Foundation launched the UOCEAN project in 2020. We've now got 18 sites in the UK, so UOCEAN chapters. So groups that go out and clean up rivers, coastlines, canals, oceans, go in schools, educational projects, create art projects. So 18 sites in the UK, 15 internationally. So we've got like UOCEAN Indonesia, UOCEAN Malawi, UOCEAN St. Lucia, in the UK, and we've also got like in the US actually, we've got UOCEAN Oregon, we've got UOCEAN New Jersey. So we're opening up a few more chapters this year in the States. Launched UOCEAN, great. I mean, scaled it, more and more impact, more people, removing plastics out of the rivers, canals every single day. From UOCEAN, we very much had an organic progression when I asked once again, like, I'm protecting my tribe here. I asked them, how would you like to see this go? What's your thoughts on this project? Because this project's for you, not for me. And very much they said, we love being outdoors. We love what it does for our mental health. This was coming out of COVID, the lockdown. So UEARTH then started because UOCEAN's all about blue conservation. And we thought, if we're looking after the oceans, can we not look after the land as well? And
Yeah.
also, if we're on land, how can we create a feedback loop? Let's look at why humans aren't seeing themselves as part of this ecosystem, right? Your lungs, for instance, are only 50% of your breathing apparatus. No air, what's the point of having lungs? So nature is 50% of our breathing apparatus, our lungs are 50%. So UEarth has the slogan, connecting people and planet. So we started reforesting, planting trees, creating flower gardens, meadows, all these kind of things. And then around those sites, we do meditation, mindfulness, yoga. So we connect people with the planet. So actually, when you start to still your mind, when you start to remove yourself, when's the last time you took 1 hour for yourself? No kids, no phone, no laptop, no interviews, no stories, no media, no business, no emails, and actually just was in nature, breathing and not moving, just staying still for 1 hour. 99% of people would say they've not experienced that in 6 months.
Yeah.
So it's one of these things that we connect people with the planet by doing that. And then UEarth just took off. So this year we're scaling UEarth to all 18 sites in the UK. Exciting next month, we've got we're planting around 1,000 trees on around 25 acres, bringing some wellness coaches down with us, and we're cross-pollinating communities from the inner city to the rural countryside to actually give people an opportunity. And we're working with institutions that are like race equality centres, refugee centres, drug rehabilitation centres, also schools, volunteers, just the everyday person. And that's what UOCEAN and UEarth's about accessible conservation. It's all free, doesn't cost them anything, and we just want to support people just to realize, how beautiful they are, how wonderful they actually, their soul is, they are inside. And, everyone is beautiful in some way. We just need to actually have the eyes to be able to see it. And that's holistically, I think, what the Vayyu Foundation stands for.
Wow. My gosh. So I'm a little blown away because I just think that this is fascinating, Chris, what you've done. And on so many levels, what you're incorporating people to do and how you're teaching us to interact and engage with our planet again. And you're right, we have such disconnect. And
Mm.
we've had Clint Ober, who was the founding father of earthing products, and he's talked about how we need to connect back to the earth, and that is how we recharge our battery. And it's simple things like that that we just have we've lost track of, we're not aware of. When they started making rubber soles on our shoes, it totally would disconnected us to recharging from the earth. And so it's those things that we are unaware of that we're coming back to and being taught. And the meditation, how you went on this journey, and through meditation and stilling yourself, you were able to connect with that higher self and with the earth and with the energies around you. And we're energetic beings. So I think it's such a beautiful and creative thing that you have really brought and inspired the community to do. It's just beautiful.
No, thank you. Oh, you're setting the bar high there, but thank you.
You're welcome. Well, I'll go through a couple more of these photos, but I think that that's fascinating. And again, wow, inspiring. We've got a couple of comments that have come through.
Good.
But mostly it looks like just praise for you, sir.
That's
All the
good.
things that you are doing and achieving. Well done. So, Chris, it has been amazing having you on the Wellness Driven Life Show. Wow. And so I want to invite everyone here to check it out, to follow it, to engage, be a part of, because I certainly will be. I'm so thrilled again, Chris, to know you, and I'm so excited to get my hands on this and engage as well. So let's bring in the websites. I've had it displayed a little bit through the show, but for those of you listening in, always find the information of our guests in the description below. www.uocean.org. Very easy, uocean.org. And then the Earth Project is www.uearthproject.org. So those are some of the beautiful sites that you can go and see and find out what project. Man, Chris, you're everywhere too. I mean, you talked about all of the places that you have launched this, and it's just incredible.
No, do you know what? A lot of it is just organic, and it's people reaching out, just how, you're inviting people to connect with us, even through like Instagram. We get people from all countries around the world saying, can you start this here? This is what we need. This is what we want. I've been waiting for this,
Yeah.
and that's where we come in and actually help to provide the resources, help to provide the skills, the access, to create something like this. And every chapter is different. Every chapter will continue to be different because it needs to be around the needs of that community, and it's open for everyone. Conservation is what unites every single person on a single vision, regardless of race, regardless of gender, regardless of social class. Like, conservation unites everyone. No planet, no people.
That's beautiful. Chris, they just needed somebody to come along that was willing and passionate enough to put the couple of years in of work where they looked at somebody else's grocery cart and said, I really wish I had that. And so that's beautiful, really. I want to thank you so much for being a beautiful guest on the Wellness Driven Life Show.
Thank you for having me. I mean, yeah, it's been emotional, it's been spiritual, it's been a bit of everything. Yeah, no, just thank you for having me, and I hope your audiences can get some value from what I'm saying. If not, I hope they've had a few laughs, and that's it. I just wanted it to be authentic, be raw, and just personal. So yeah, thank you for having me.
My pleasure. Thank you so much. And speaking of audience, the show wouldn't be possible without you. So thank you so much for tuning in. And goodbye for now. We will see you next time.